without further ado, I bring to you Jayaprakash to speak on role of knowledge management in scaling Scrum. Could we give him a round of applause, please? And Ramesh, who works with JP, is going to co-present as well. JP, whichever one you want, pick it up.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Okay, morning guys.
Good morning.
Very good morning, and I see again a lot of faces, and as Maran probably announced about the journey, and I've been through this journey almost from the beginning. I was there in the first batch when Pete Timur was here, and there was Jesse Fuel who came in a couple of sessions, and then it's been an ongoing journey. And the main reason why we come here is because of the quality of the people here, the quality of the knowledge sharing that happens here, and an opportunity to connect with all the like-minded professionals. So let's begin, and so let me introduce Ramesh. He's one of our colleagues and co-founder of my company Arita Consulting Services, and he comes from a lot of knowledge management background, and I come from technology background and agile consulting background. So we're going to present on this topic called role of knowledge management in scaling Scrum. Right? If you've observed very keenly, I think one of the themes for this conference was scaling Scrum. But then, if you really speak about scaling Scrum, you need about like 4 days, right? The kind of questions that can come up while scaling or while adopting Agile at large scale. But then there is a special interest or special importance for knowledge management with respect to scaling Scrum. So that could give us a scope to discuss without actually missing the time box boundary that we have. Okay, so let's begin. We're going to co-present. Sometimes Ramesh will pitch in, and sometimes I will continue. So let's start. So here is the next 40 minutes. We planned it for 40 minutes, though it was 45 minutes slot. And we're going to get into the context of what this is all about, and then the details, and then the conclusion, and maybe Q&A. And we'd like to have fun throughout the session, so feel free to ask any question. There is no question called stupid question. Okay. So, any ideas around the phrase knowledge management? What do you guys think? Any thoughts?
Actually, the explicit knowledge, what you can write down.
Okay.
This is quite common, that people try to write it down and get it more.
Sure.
And there's a implicit knowledge, what is even harder to catch. If some people have some experience,
sure.
How do you get it into some others? This is, I think, the most difficult part.
That's a wonderful point. He got into the crux of knowledge management. So we're going to speak more about it. But so what he's trying to say is that there will be something called implicit knowledge. There will be some explicit knowledge that is quite evident and very visible. Implicit is more of internal stuff, right? Yeah, that's a good point. Any other thoughts around knowledge management?
So if you're talking about knowledge management in an organization, so anything that you do which you think might be useful to the company, you're in a project and you think some other projects might use it.
Sure.
Could be anything. It could be technical, it could be sales, marketing, absolutely anything.
So anything to do with the way we work and the kind of work that we are doing, something which should be reusable or something which should be combined, right? So you might get some more ideas if you look into these pictures. Any other thoughts now after the pictures?
It's about, we may have a lot of conversations, a lot of articles creating and things like that.
Sure.
But how do we streamline?
Streamline, okay. So when you say streamline, are you talking about standardizing some stuff? Or?
Not standardizing. Say for example, I read it in a different way.
Okay.
How do I reproduce it for the other people?
Okay. So
how do I streamline that knowledge which I gain
Sure.
to the general public or whatever?
Sure.
That is one of the main
aspects of knowledge management. Okay, it's wonderful. Any other thoughts? How about this? I think this is something very close to what you said.
So basically, the learnings or experiences that are already there will be reused for further enhancing and minimizing the time taken for doing the same kind of work.
Sure. Okay, so a lot of what you describe basically sometimes is like hidden, and what we see on the top is like tip of the iceberg. And that's what we actually refer to what is called as implicit, and it's actually called, the technical jargon is called tacit knowledge. We're going to get into that in a few moments. So here is it, right? The tacit knowledge, which is also the implicit knowledge. So knowledge in our heads. Basically it's our heads, the people's heads, and a lot of it cannot be easily documented. It cannot be explained or shared so easily unless there is a rapport that you build with me and I just become a part of you and I explain you, or we work together, then it's easy to transfer the knowledge. Otherwise, it's mostly, I mean, have you guys experienced, you or any of your colleagues are really good in doing something, but it's not easy to replicate unless we go work collaboratively. And that's why sometimes they become heroes of the group, or sometimes the whole organization becomes dependent on them. Right? The moment those people leave, things will collapse. But it's a very important knowledge. And basically, so this is what the last line says. It requires personal contact and trust to share such kind of knowledge. And the other form of knowledge is explicit knowledge that can be captured, written down, and presented in documents and databases. So just as an example, so whatever we are doing right now in this ScrumBangalore session, right? What kind of a knowledge is it as of now? If you refer me or speaker, any of the speakers, we are talking about some of our tacit knowledge which we have gained through several years of consulting. For example, I am in the Agile world from last 11 years now. It's not with big speed. And I've seen through various flavors of Agile in different environments and different implementation. So a lot of things are in my head, right? But the moment we share this deck in a documented format and present it to you in a slide share, it becomes explicit. The tacit knowledge, maybe if not everything, some form of it will be converted into explicit knowledge, and you can probably share it as well, right? So that's the fundamental concepts of knowledge types: tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. Now, has any of you heard about SESI model? SESI. So you must be wondering, why are we speaking about some weird topic of knowledge management on the ScrumBangalore conference, or in the ScrumBangalore conference? I'm sure you'll start connecting now. Okay, just look at the words, anything which relates to the ScrumBangalore and what we are speaking. Any one or two words which are there in the slide deck right now? Knowledge, okay, yeah. How does it relate? Any phrase that you want to quote?
Any names?
Huh?
Names.
Spiral, okay, Spiral was one of the software engineering methodology. Right, okay, Nonaka, yeah. So Nonaka is the guy. Okay, that's good. Spiral also is, by the way, Spiral model and iterative and incremental, all of them led to Agile way of working in Scrum evolved. So, so just to tell you that there is a model called SESI model, which was popularized by Nonaka and Takaushi, who are interestingly are the originators of Scrum idea, right? Where Ken and Jeff brought some ideas from the paper which was published in the Uppsala conference. They presented the idea of Scrum, which is actually based on a paper published by Nonaka and Takaushi. It's called New Product Development Game. Right? So that is the origination, and the whole new product development game, the paper that was published, was a result of a lot of scientific study and based on this model called SESI model, which is again based on those knowledge types that we described. Right? So if you see here, tacit to tacit. So I have something in my head, and we are transferring it to your head. And maybe it will go into your head and settle in its own format. You will interpret the information relating to your own experiences. And to do that, we need to socialize, and this is one of the socializing steps that we are doing right now. So the way the knowledge gets transferred from tacit to tacit is through socialization process. Okay, that's what S stands for, and then externalization, combination, incrementalization. So if you talk about externalization, so we have the tacit knowledge that gets captured here, and we're going to publish this in a documented format in the slideshow. So that becomes explicit knowledge, which can be used for further sharing. Now, let's say, so you get this, and today we speak about knowledge management and Scrum here, and maybe someone else in some other conference do something else, and then you're going to combine all of them and then convert it to a new format, which should be useful to you. That's like combination, explicit to explicit, it's a combination. that usually results in new knowledge. Potentially could result in innovative products and solutions. That serve a lot of Japanese companies where the original ideas came from, innovated in their company, right? So Toyota or Honda City, right? In fact, the Honda City was actually called Tall Man. Okay? There was a code word in Honda called Tall Man. There was a new concept which was built to build a new car which is slightly taller than the older version of Honda, and the whole initiative was based on this kind of SESI model. Okay, the Honda City. So and then the last one is explicit to tacit. So this is very, very key. If you read this, you can read the text later in the text. But just as a brief explanation, whatever we gain, a lot of knowledge through various sources, we have to internalize it. So it includes, it applies to even Agile and Scrum. For example, a lot of times we learn what Agile values are, principles are, but unless we internalize in our own work, in the DNA of what we do, we don't really, we cannot get real benefits. Right? So that internalization basically means applying something, applying the knowledge that we acquire in a meaningful way that suits our context. And so, and when you're doing that, you're doing a lot of tailoring, customization to your source, and that becomes your tacit knowledge, something that works for you. And it again goes back to your heads and set, unless you make an attempt to. So basically, this whole cycle, once it completes, then you have a new layer of knowledge which is tacit. Now again, serious companies, innovative companies, what they do is they trigger again tacit to explicit knowledge, and then the cycle goes down, and that's why it's actually called a spiral of knowledge creation. Okay, all these things were very clearly described in a book called the Knowledge Creating Company. We'll come to that later. So Ramesh has a lot of background. Ramesh, you want to quote some examples in, let's say, this one combination?
The combination, I can quote an example like Borvita, whatever it is, the drink. The thing is, what Borvita company did was they came out to the public and asked them to come up with the problems, what they face on daily basis actually. So Borvita, the problems was that Borvita was not mixing with milk actually. Whenever you mix it, they form crystals and actually it does not mix very well. So they asked what would be the solution as well. So one of the ladies in the community said that they can come up with Borvita balls kind of thing, so it mixes well easy. So they are now working on it actually.
So instead of powder, I think someone gave a simple idea. Let's form it in the form of balls, and it will be easy to stir and mix. So that's something which came from the community, and
it's innovation. When knowledge combined and it becomes combination. That's how innovation happens. Innovation happens all throughout the cycle actually.
So Ramesh has also experience of working for Volvo and the Schneider Electric, those kind of companies where in Volvo, for example, if you want to do a new innovation, they actually do a lot of field visits and they check on the real-time problems, on-the-road problems that happen to the trucks and things like that, and then make it a form of community, and then they get some new ideas and combine them explicit, and then come up with innovation. So that's about SESI model. And so as of now, we know there is something called knowledge management and what it is, and how very high. But why do you think we should care as a company, as an organization? Why is it really important? Okay.
You use the tacit knowledge, and it has not been exclusified.
Sure.
In the company's gone case.
Okay, sure. So if the people holding tacit knowledge leave the company or leave the team, or leave the company, then things might collapse. So we want to ensure that we convert it to explicit knowledge as soon as possible. That's one of the primary things. But then there are much more reasons why people really care about it, because you would have seen in the cycle, when the cycle happens, there is a scope for innovation if it is managed well, right? So same old idea when combined together and applied to our context might result in an innovative product. So there is a key for innovation. Right? So if you really see, there is a need for knowledge transfer so that we don't collapse as a company. Yes, we don't become person dependent. There is a need for collaborating on some complex products, and again there needs to be a transfer of knowledge. And then the innovation. These are the primary drivers why people who are the companies who are serious about innovating consider knowledge management as a serious initiative, okay, in the company. So we already got some connection in Naraka and Spiral to the Scrum, and this is the real connection. So how many of you read this book? Raise of hands, please. Okay, so we are in Scrum Bangalore, and so next time before we come to Scrum Bangalore, we should make an attempt to read this, because this is the basis on which Ken and Jeff basically published their paper in Woodstock Conference in '95. And this experiment was done quite some time back, and Nanaka had written this book. So Scrum was a byproduct of knowledge management experiments, right? So if you want to enable knowledge management across a community of people who are working, there are different ways and different things. So they experimented what works, what doesn't work. Should we keep it very light? Should we allow them to self-organize, or should we do it in a traditional manner? A lot of experiments were done, and then they documented few things that worked for them to enable knowledge management. And Ken and Jeff found them as a very, very innovative way of getting things done. And so why don't we make a small framework and adapt it to software? Right? Most of them was actually adopted for the manufacturing industry in Toyota and those kind of scenarios. But then Ken thought, and Jeff and Ken thought, why can't we adopt it for software development? It is, after all, a creative process. It is not as simple as making a cup of tea. Right? Software involves creativity, and this can be a great tool to enable that. And that's how they came up with Scrum framework. Okay? So if you see here, if you ever see the history, these people published this paper in 1986, and these ideas were experimented by Ken and Jeff for years, and then they finally presented the Scrum idea in '95. And then after a few more years, I think '99, Ken Beck published Extreme Programming Explained, and then that's how a lot of ideas evolved. In 2001, you know the story, Agile Manifesto. Okay, so that was about the context, what we are speaking and why. Now let's figure out, coming back to the theme of today, which is scaling Scrum, one of the themes, I believe. It's a scaling Scrum. Can you guys tell me what are some of the important factors that could affect the success, or that are responsible for success for scaling Scrum? Scaling Agile, scaling Scrum. Let's be focused on scaling Scrum. Team decides? Okay, so they are working in different model, and that might be a factor.
People,
Okay. People who are involved in scaling.
It's the integration, basically.
Integration of several ideas and several teams. Right. And we all understand by scaling, what we're trying to do is we're trying to adopt Scrum. It is helping us. Okay, it is helping another team. So why can't we do this org-wide, or maybe multiple teams, maybe an organization-wide, a sub-organization-wide, and really work very, very collaboratively. But it's not as easy as we say, right? So scaling involves a lot of challenges and factors. So basically, the reality of scaling, right? I've also experienced this in the last 5 years, where I've consulted on large-scale transformation, starting from scale of like 200 people to 4,000 people. I've worked in this range. So different teams scale differently, because every team is unique, every project is unique, and every product or every organization, sub-organization, the context is unique. Their constraints are different, the level of senior management involvement is different from company to company, or maybe from teams to team. Their project management involvement could be totally different, and accordingly the way they scale is different. Right? And so some people would have made a lot of tailoring to the way it does. And so again, like you guys recognize, Scrum again is not a prescription, similar to Agile. So Agile is very, very high level. Scrum probably says it's a set of boundary conditions, do's and don'ts, but what you do inside that, how you fill the framework is up to you. Right? They don't prescribe anything. For that matter, they don't even say you do the estimation using planning for point or whatever, right? These are all something which we have derived in the package form. So from that context, everything is unique. Okay, and there is a context. So that is the reason why the success factors, one of the key success factors of scaling Scrum is how can we tap something which is working for this team and something which is working for another team, how can we combine and how can we streamline, like Arun, I think you use the right word, how do we streamline to whatever extent possible, and then how do we ensure there is a reuse and there is a sharing of, let's say, so we started Scrum and because of our kind of products and technologies, something was not working out of the box. So we tailored something. So we want to share this with our colleagues who are sitting in some other country or maybe some other location in the same city, right? How do we enable that? If we don't enable that as an organization, we don't scale in Agile and Scrum, right? It's very difficult. So one of the key factors, a few of the key factors are empirical knowledge. So those of you implemented Scrum very seriously realize that the success of the Scrum at an individual team level really depends on the way we enable empirical knowledge to be created. Right? A lot of times, let's say you want to do a release planning and because of pressures, you will be forced to come up with some estimate and just go doing it, right? And I've hardly seen few companies where they allow you to experiment for a couple of sprints, generate your empirical data, and then base your decisions on the empirical data and continue to refine that every now and then, right? A lot of companies don't do that, and the Scrum fails if you don't rely on empirical data. So basically, enabling that generation and improvement and managing the generated empirical knowledge using the SESI kind of a model, or it could be any model, I'm just using this because it's quite popular, and then doing whole of this thing in a transparent manner and sustaining. That is the key success factor of scaling Scrum, along with several others like senior management involvement, your technology, etc. Right? This is one of the key factors, and hence it becomes really important to scale the Scrum and Agile in the organization. Okay. So, but then knowledge management itself has gone through several, Ramesh can actually relate it very easily because I think he used to, 2000 right? 2000 or 2002, around that time he used to work with Schneider Electric and some other companies where all of traditional methods were being used to manage knowledge, and then there was an evolvement in the way it happens. So they have taken a lot of baby steps in the way knowledge itself gets managed. Whether or not you're an Agile team or Scrum team, it's supposed to be managed. So we'll not get into the details, but I'm trying to introduce some jargons, right? Any of you heard about taxonomy? Yeah, so the classification of the knowledge in some logical fashion, meaningful folder. That was the old way of doing it. And from taxonomy to folksonomy, where people were given importance. So someone rightly pointed out, people are more important, right? So that means it doesn't matter how we classify it should be appreciated by people, it should be more useful by the people. So let's hear from the people and then organize accordingly. There was an emphasis here, right? So actually these are all captured as a part of knowledge management 1.2, 2.2 and things like that, okay? And the recent one is meonomy. You see all this Facebook, so many things, right? It's very focused on an individual, right? If it doesn't impress me, I'll check. So I'll switch from Facebook to something else. And that's the competition that's happening between Google Hangout or Google Circles, I guess. Circles versus Google Plus. Yeah, Google Plus versus Facebook versus, in fact, Facebook competed like this with, yeah, MySpace, yeah. That's a good one, right? So meonomy, a me-centric thing, right? If the knowledge that is getting spread, and if that is not impacting me, not useful to me, then I don't really want to continue that too, that forum, right? So that's why the emphasis shifting from blogging to this versus again to Facebook, and sometimes you might come back to a blog. So a lot of things are happening, right? And communities of practice. So how many of you have built any of the communities of practice in your own companies? Lightweight, yes. I see some raise of hands. And so has anyone of you heard about Spotify? Yes, Spotify. That's the latest engineering culture that is being experimented in the company. And so they use this form called guilds, right? Tribes to guilds. So tribe is basically, Scrum works very well when it's a tribe culture, when you want to be proud to be associated with your team and a part of self-organizing team, which can, it's like a roaring horse, right? You can do anything as a self-organizing team. That was advocated by Ken and Jeff in the initial coaching sessions about Scrum. After that, there are squads and guilds, and these concepts are used in Spotify engineering culture. So in summary, knowledge management itself is evolving in various phases. The way we do this is evolving, and obviously we're all moving towards the lightweight agile approach. Okay, that's the summary of it. Okay, so we can get into conclusion now, and we want to do a quick activity. Okay, we want to hear your own experience. I'm sure you will be doing. So Ramesh, do you want to just write this? Yeah. Basically. Yeah, actually we were thinking that you'll be seated on with some tables. Yeah, we can do this. We can do some groups. So logical groups. We want to divide you into logical parts. Okay, so just make 6 or 7 member team. So before we group, can we have a head count of how many of you have tried anything called knowledge management in a formal manner? In your companies. Formal manner. Okay. 2, 3, 4. Okay. How many of you use that either KM or just an informal knowledge transfer for your agile adoption? Scaling agile adoption. How many of you used it in your agile? Okay, there are quite a few hands. So what we need to do is we need to organize ourselves, self-organize into some 4 or 5 groups where these champions are there in each group. So do you mind swapping the chairs so that, or this entire thing is a group. Okay. So someone raised here the hand. Do you mind shifting here for some time so that you are part of this group? Just want a small 5 minutes activity. You want to advise that. Aarti, do you mind coming in front of the bench? And one more. There was another person who did some. Yeah, you know, somewhere that side. For 5 to 10, 5 minutes. We'll time box. So 7 to 8, 10 members, it's fine. We just want to get into an activity. We want to make a point on the new approach that we are doing for games. We want to see how the participants understand. Okay, so the guys swap the place. You probably want to sit somewhere here. So imagine that you are like a tribe. These guys with the champion who has done some kind of experiment. So the previous one is one group, and this is, and here also. This is one, and the previous, I think, the back, this side. Okay, that's fine, never mind. Okay, so your task, we are going to time box it for 3 minutes. Okay, I forgot my bell, famous bell that we use. Okay, so 3 minutes time box, and you got to discuss among yourself as a part of groups. What kind of activities have you tried to do have you tried to do knowledge transfer? And then what have been effective so far? What is working for you?
Basically knowledge sharing, what do you do for knowledge?
Yeah, you do a lot of things informally, right? Not necessarily in the way of knowledge management, formally. So we want you to brainstorm and then come up with top 2 things that work for your group based on your own experiences in your life. Okay, we want to list down those top 2 for each group. Okay, so clear on what we need to do? Okay, so your time box is going to start now. Okay, get into this. Okay. We also have a timer here.
How many times have you time
We have the same problem. Stuff, but then it's just there. It doesn't really evolve. You don't relate with it.
So we make some dump here. So we make some dump so that anybody can read it whenever it's required. So it's coming. Share the knowledge. Or sometimes formally give knowledge transfer to a particular person. So we team so that everyone knows what was happening. It doesn't depend on one particular person. So that they manage the knowledge.
In our case, what we do is we make knowledge buddies, where one person pair up with the other person, and both of them work together, and it's similar to the exercise what we are doing. So that person can come and present that what is it. So the idea is that at least 2 of them can come out. It's very much important. And then once they are settled down and they come to the conclusion, then it goes to the larger group that what they have learned. So that way, like, it's kind of multiplying the heads, and that is.
So you have 1 more minute to go.
So we kind of extend what you have been doing in your organization. It's like a person who is experienced in doing something, right? We pair that person with somebody.
Still the business, they go through that, but it's very rare. When there is a really need, they will go, otherwise they will not go. So that section is still not the team who are developers or the testers, they are using that a lot. See, the guys who are going through that and the guys who are not serious about that, there is a difference in the faster way of developing the new services.
20 seconds more.
What more I do is when some new products come up, like this is the things you have to go through. New projects.
I think this one should be like an informal daily KT session that happens keeps happening.
Last 5 seconds. 4, 3,
Like
2,
comments noted in issue
1.
packing.
Okay, let's stop it. Okay, pause. Time box. Hear from each group the top 2 or 3 ideas. Yeah, I said top 2, but then more. So let's say it's 2 or 3. Okay, I'm going to write it here.
Let's start from
First group 1.
Basically, one good practice which we follow in our organization is pairing. Right? Somebody is an expert of in certain area.
Sure.
So what we do is we pair that person along with somebody who doesn't know it.
Okay.
And we don't allow the person who is experienced to work on it and allow the person who doesn't know how things work to work on it, so that he learns in the process and the person is there to kind of guide that person.
Sure.
And the similar pairing keeps on carrying out with other people.
Okay.
Where the knowledge gets shared across multiple people in the team, right?
So you basically are trying to say that let people work together and then there's a live knowledge transfer.
Exactly.
Instead of relying on the traditional one.
Exactly.
Okay. What are the second factors that work for you?
I think that's one of the things we do.
Any other guys?
Documentation.
The documentation. Okay. Cool. Documentation. Okay. The next group, please. Thank you. The next group. SharePoint based sharing. Okay. That's SharePoint portal. Okay. Cool.
Anything else?
I'm trying to make it more as a pull base, rather than
Okay. So it's a voluntary based, pull based thing, right? Okay. That's a nice one. Pull based. Okay. Any other ideas?
Actually, I want to add it
Yeah.
rather than pool based, POO pool based. That is NASA knowledge of way of working.
Sure.
They generally create a pool, and whosoever do something extraordinary, and which is effective and positive, they have to put it in that pool.
Sure.
And whenever people get time, they have to see that and implement in their way.
Okay.
So that is
More about crowdsourcing.
It's like crowdsourcing. Yeah, that's a nice nowadays buzzword. There's a movie which is getting formed in crowdsourcing. Okay, this group, please.
I think one of the point was like sharing through enterprise social media basically.
Enterprise social media. Okay.
Giant.
So basically, you invest in social media tools which are like enterprise in nature and then truly enable the collaboration. Okay. Any other idea from that group? Enterprise social.
the other one we have is brown bag or lunch on lunch talks,
Okay.
where they would utilize the time to discuss. And the third one is top 3 meetings.
Okay.
Meaning people bring in their top 3 issues or top 3 woes or top 3, and from that we take top 3 actions which has to be closed in the next 1 week.
Okay, so I would just say top 3.
Top three meetings.
Top 3 actions, top 3 ideas, right? Good, nice one. So how about the last group?
Tech talks and demos which include both formal and informal demos.
Sure. Tech docs.
Just a couple of more, which I have seen in a couple of
Yeah.
organizations. We used to have as a team something called as bits and bytes. We used to call
Bits and bytes.
which is like a new learning if we get.
Okay.
We used to share it as in a kind of a newsletter,
Okay.
which goes to the enders of the group.
Okay, so that's another one. So newsletter, right? Company-wide internal newsletter.
And one more is like a group of people. Our
Okay.
seniors are the experts. If we get a problem, we go to them.
Sure.
And they would share their particular knowledge back with us. So it's like a group of core team or
Core team, and you just
so
go and,
they are not into any projects or anything. Their only job is problem solving.
Okay. Yeah, those are the old days actually. I don't know if it still works.
Another one
group of such people. But anyways.
Another one way is that is not everyone has privilege to go to conferences.
Yeah.
So the person who goes to conference need to present.
We'll bring it back. So bring it back.
The one full day conference will be swing to a one hour session where he gets the abstract.
At least we should thank providers. They're recording and making it available for us. Okay, that's a nice idea. So here is how something that we want to share our experience. The wonderful ideas here. You can map this, and that's why I wrote it here. So this is one of the companies. We had a similar initiative. There was like 3,000 people scaling and across 10 different countries, and there was a need for managing this knowledge and to be used in the scaling agile adoption. Of course, they were also using some scaling framework, but then traditional things will not work. And as I mentioned in the evolution of KM approaches, it has to be lightweight, full-based, right? It's very easy to just formalize, okay, from now onwards, anything that gets shared should go to SharePoint portal, and here is the section, right? But if you announce this, the only click that comes is like once in 6 months, and people don't participate. So unless you make it lightweight, community-based, full-based approach, that's why communities of practice are given more importance in the scaling scenario. So like we listed here, the wiki-based brown bag with lunch, and mailing list, webinars, right? Brainstorming sessions, which are different from Brainbox for brown bag sessions, and QA forum, posters, flyers, right? A lot of things. So the success of this kind of an approach in a scale environment relies on how are you going to enable the community to come up with this list. Like we just try to attempt to do, they should come up with this list. They should probably brainstorm and pick and choose, maybe do a silent voting or dot voting, you have various techniques, come to a consensus, and they decide how to proceed. Then the chances of sustaining them and actually making use of it is more. And so as facilitators, agile leaders, coaches, as Scrum Masters, we need to ensure that we create such an environment where people can come up, open up, come up with options, choose, vote for it, and then try to practice, then it becomes more sustainable. So the most important point in the communities of practice and KM initiatives is sustaining for a longer time. And then having that model in mind, and someone who's driving it should have this SE model in mind that it can happen in various forms and there are files, and how do we ensure that it is connected back to our business objectives, right? It's just helping as a company how to move forward, right? So I think that was a community COP based approach which is going to be working.
You forgot about meetups.
This is a meetup. Yeah, sure.
This is the best.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I think somewhere here, like this was just an exercise, it was a snapshot, but that's an important one. Meetups, unconferences, right? Have you heard of unconferences or open forum sessions where you don't have an agenda? You assemble and create an agenda dynamically and do it, right? These are all approaches moving towards community-based approach. Webinars, online webinars, yeah. So I think that's all we wanted to say. The final message was this: KM is a critical success factor for scaling Scrum. We feel that and out of our experience. Okay, I'm sure some of you would have related to this. And so if time permits, right now, how are we doing in time? We ended the session. So this is an optional thing. We have 5 minutes, so we have a couple of choices. Either you can ask any more question answers and we can have fun, or we can hear Ken a 5-minute video clip where he really speaks about KM and Scrum, and that's where we can go forward. So should we hear the video or questions? Video. It's up to you guys.
So no one want to talk?
Both. Both. Okay, then we need extra 10 minutes. 5 minutes.
Questions on the video.
Okay, so let me just play the video.
I'll pass on to Ken.
Just
you don't know if you.
Okay. Yeah. I need to. This is an extended mode. Yeah. I'll pull this. No problem. No problem. You don't have to duplicate. I can pull it.
Want to do that. You are very flavy though. You all know that Scrum is not an acronym. It's an event in the game of rugby where like-minded people get together and politely discuss ownership of a ball. I did not invent Scrum. That would be arrogant beyond belief. So Scrum is probably a collection of best ideas of what a number of people in our profession have come up with over the years. The urgency of it and agile and extreme programming came with the ascendancy of methodologies and process gurus and project management organizations and waterfall, and so it's more of a collection of those ideas in reaction to them. There were two Japanese gentlemen, Naka and Takeuchi, who published an article, the new product development came in the Harvard Business Review in '86, and later a book called The Knowledge Created Company in 1988. And in it they described an approach that embodies a lot of the ideas in Scrum. They had studied companies that were in tight competitive situations. That is, they were losing money and certain products. And this included Fujifilm, Toyota, 3M, and Xerox. And all these companies that they had studied had come up with competitive responses to the encroachment on their market share using a very similar approach. All of these companies tried to look and see what the competition was, what the threat was as clearly as possible, and then they pulled together a team of their very best people. And it wasn't just, the engineers or just wasn't marketing people. Instead, it was a cross-functional team. And they wanted this team to come up with a competitive response for their company. And the reason they chose a cross-functional team, people who knew their company from all different angles, is they didn't want to come up with a great financial solution that was absolutely useless from a support point of view. They didn't want to come up with a great engineering solution that wasn't of any value in the marketplace. So they wanted something that was of value overall within the company. So they got someone from finance, and they got someone from marketing, someone from sales, someone from support, yes, even someone from support, who we guessed that, someone from engineering, research and development, inventory management, and they got them together and said, as you guys know, by the way, guys is appropriate in here, but it's not meant to be pejorative, okay? Guys, we have a horrible situation, and we are counting on you to save our bacon. We're counting on you to rescue our company from the corner that we're backed into. So we want you to come up with a competitive response to what that other company is doing. By the way, you don't have forever. We're in a bit of a financial crunch here, so you have 3 months. And so what we'd like you to do is go to this facility we've rented for you across town, and we want you to come up with the response that we are going to introduce to the marketplace and regain our market share. Oh, by the way, in 3 months, we don't want from you a position paper. We don't want a PowerPoint presentation. We don't want a discussion. We want the product ready. We want it ready to be shipped. We're not going to review what you've done. You're our best people. Why would we have to approve or disapprove? So simply do it. By the way, during the 3 months that you're in this facility across town, we're not going to bother you, because it's amazing. You're actually working on something that is of great importance to the company, so we're not going to interrupt you. However, if you're doing anything at all that needs external help, needs resources that you don't have, needs support that you can't get, again, since you're working on something that's really critical to the company, come to us and ask for it. And then they took them outside to a bus that took them across town. And at first, the people on the team, it's like 8 or 9 people, were concerned that maybe this was a new form of layoff that they hadn't been aware of. And then they settled back, and they were pretty happy to be with each other. And, how's your wife? And my kids are in school, and they're talking about and also one of them was like, hey guys, we have 2 months and 27 days left. Now, if we don't come up with something really good, one, we're going to be letting our company down. because we were sent here to regain market share. The second thing is we are going to be utterly humiliated in 2 months, 27 days when we stand and say, well, we couldn't think of anything. You know, that's kind of a bad situation to be in. Now, of these situations that were studied, not one of those teams failed to come up with something that had a significant impact on the marketplace. Some of them were, stellar, some of them were okay, but none of them were situations where they were like, well, we needed another month, couldn't quite get it done. They all came up with something that was a competitive response.
Okay, so that was it. And just as a last point, here's a contact details. And so Ramesh basically carries a lot of expertise in the way we set up these communities of practice and things like that. So any of you want to collaborate, help with us, or share your own ideas, please feel free to reach us. Okay, and we'll be glad to help you out and share the knowledge with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, JP. Thanks for bringing Ken Schrubber for us to our Scrum Bangalore meetup. Anybody heard of the word live sharing? I know live streaming. That's the best I know. Ever heard of that before?